Hello, everybody. I'm Preston Poulter here with Pocket Jacks Comics, and I have uh, Patriarchal Ape and Darth Daddy Lunga with me this evening, who will both be presenting pages. So, this is our Wednesday writer group. So,
Special day, April 1st.
April
it
1st.
is. I know.
Just kidding. Just kidding. It's not really April 1st.
Yeah, and
No, wait. No, wait. It's
and
my least favorite holiday of all time.
yeah, I checked in on my tenants. Uh, and they're still paying rent, so that's the most important thing to me. But obviously, they have other dreams and aspirations and whatnot. But it's funny, like one of them works for Amazon, and so they got real busy with the quarantine and all that.
Mm.
And then another one is a pizza delivery driver, and he got real busy.
Yeah.
And another one works for Walmart. So all three of them have been pretty well protected in that regard.
Yeah.
But
It's funny. My son, he just graduated art school last year, and he does like freelance works for Roblox, that game,
Mm.
and he's home all the time. He's here in the basement, and then that's where he stays. Like never pops his head out hardly, and I'm like, everything going okay with you? And he's like, yeah, we've been busy as hell. There's just so many people on the game. So many people. I go, yeah, that's what happens when there's a quarantine. Everyone's playing games. So
yeah, exactly.
Never really experienced anything like this myself, but
yeah,
yeah, it's almost sort of my now everybody knows what it's like to be me. Just staying home all day, chilling.
Exactly. All right, so we got both of you are presenting scripts. So who wants to tell me about their story first?
Yeah.
All right, Patriarchal Ape, tell me about your story.
Yeah, so this is the first time I've actually written anything in script form. My I kind of learned what to do from my brother, who we've broadcast some readings of his comic script ideas that he's done in the
Mm-hmm.
past on our own channel. Safe Space was the one I remember was being very enjoyable. That's the It was a comic idea where it's a writer who gets attacked by radical Muslim terrorists and Antifa in his home, his palatial mansion,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of like a cross between Home Alone and Death Wish. He's just the part that, of course, sticks out in our minds most, especially, is when he drops a PlayStation 3 on somebody's head and squishes them into jelly, and then a Blu-ray pops out of the disc tray for the PlayStation 3, and we're reading it with one of our former uh, SWC mods from our blog, Nice Mod, and he's like, "I wonder what was in that tray. So which game was in there?" And me and my brother both say it was probably a movie. It wasn't a game.
Right.
PlayStation 3. And the first thing I did was because I remember the old memes from 4chan way back in the day, I immediately throw out that it was probably Click, that Adam Sandler movie. It's one of the first Blu-ray movies ever printed was Click. And
yeah, I remember that.
I
and
never
they both
heard of
start
that.
laughing so hard just at the idea of Click. Because it's the worst, shittiest looking movie. If you've ever seen the movie poster, it's infuriating
Mm.
looking.
Yeah, I saw 1917 and Uncut Gems because you mentioned Adam Sandler. And you know what? I was kind of struck by, they both are doing this kind of like a life happening in real time that we're observing almost.
Like
And
the one big continuous take.
yeah, like one and 1917 was definitely doing that, and that was gorgeous to watch. Where you basically can't see the cuts, and it's like because clearly I think writers have been trying to tackle the slice of life kind of thing, but the thing is nobody really wants to see someone just going about their average day unless their average day happens to be rather interesting. And so in both movies we're watching people going through a very interesting day. um,
Hmm.
and okay. Or but although
That's
in
supposed to be the idea behind writing your the main idea. If you're writing anything, it should be the most interesting moment in somebody's life.
right, exactly, and in 1917, it more or less kind of is in real time. And Uncut Gems, uh, it's spread out over a few days, but still, like you're following this guy as and he's having problems that you don't normally expect in a movie, like technical difficulty trying to get his door open and whatnot. And it's interesting. I think this may be heralding kind of a new embracing of realism, I want to say, in movies.
Cinema verite.
Yeah, and like I
Ooh.
really loved Atomic Blonde, which was I think a very underappreciated movie. But where they have Charlize Theron doing that big, it was like a 10-minute sequence with it looked like no takes. I don't know how many takes there really were, but where they're following around the camera up the elevator, out the it was just gorgeously shot, and
Yeah,
she's
they
doing
have to hide the cuts. That's what they did in 1917. I haven't
right,
seen either of those movies, but
right,
that's how I heard they do it. That's usually how they do it if they want to make it look like one big. I did
hmm
see Hardcore Henry. I think that's a
I've not seen
similar
that.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a very much more obvious how they do the cuts there because there's certain scenes where he gets knocked out. A lot of whooshing when he moves his head because it's all in first person.
right. Wow. Okay.
That's how
But
they do that.
but yeah. Oh,
Yeah, they designed that movie literally to be like a first person shooter.
and good evening, Vicky. It's good to see you.
Hey,
But
Vicky.
but yeah, I think like the most fascinating thing, and particularly in the age of computer graphics and whatnot, is to see someone actually do something. So when we're seeing Charlize Theron, like throwing kicks and punches, and it's really her doing that, it becomes I think more interesting. So
Yeah,
then
that's
there came
now that we have the technology to show anything possible.
right,
It's you gotta make it look as real as possible now.
right. But again, going back to Star Wars Phantom Menace, I think, the cool part of the movie was Darth Maul, and it was just because, that guy was really doing, that was like the fight
Yeah,
instructor, I think.
it's
Yeah.
actually as a stunt man.
Yeah.
The actor is just basically a stunt guy, and that's
Yeah.
why they chose him.
Right. And so when you can actually observe someone who's doing something, some kind of cool skill, I think that's what people, it has a authenticity that,
As opposed to the original ending to Blade. I don't know if you ever saw that. They actually
no.
have it on like the special edition or cut scene for the DVD where it's just like this big blood tornado. It looks completely silly.
Yeah.
And they went from that and they decided, no, this doesn't look good enough. So it just turns into kind of a regular sword fight versus Blade and Deacon Frost. And it
hmm
looks way better. It's way more, you get way more into it. And it's really just otherwise a sword fight.
Yeah.
And there's also, of course, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's like, oh my God, Chinese people can fly.
Exactly.
Chinese people are now airborne.
A lot of people don't realize it. If you watch a lot of the kung fu movies and stuff from the past, Crouching Tiger, it wasn't actually something new that they did with that. I mean, it looked better, obviously. The effects were
Well,
much better when they did that one.
the effects,
Uh,
the string, they could digitally remove the strings,
yeah,
the wire
right.
work.
Right. Yeah, but the old kung fu movies, you saw them wires, but they were they were flying around though.
But I mean, well, with Drunken Master, that's like one of the few that I've really seen going back that far. Jackie Chan, and it's like all that's real stunt work though. And to me, that works so much better. It looks so much better.
Mhm.
He's just all he needs is a ladder. All he needs
That's
is
it.
a ladder. He could take on the world.
Ladder, garbage can lid, whatever's near him.
A whole bunch of bottles, just bottles everywhere.
And we're talking about some of Drunken Deity's favorite movies. All right. So tell us about the story that we're gonna be going through.
All right, so yeah, I kind of described this in the last show, where it's like post collapse America.
Okay.
It's post economic collapse. I actually came up with the idea just before Trump got elected. It's like, oh man, Hillary's probably going to win because ma vagina, elect ma vagina, and
Right.
so when that happens, we're all going to be I already know what it's like to be poor. Now everyone's going to be poor. We're going to be living in pure squalor, and crime's going to go up. They're going to criminalize guns. They're going to take away your guns.
Okay, so this is like a conservative nightmare. Is that what we're watching?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
but I mean it's a little more in depth and personal than that. Especially these first 10 pages. Uh, a lot of the very opening is actually a metaphor. So you'll probably be reading it and be wondering, who is this about and what's this about? It's actually not directly relating to any actual events in the comic. It's all metaphor. It's very artsy, fartsy kind of art fag
All
fucking
right.
material like that.
Let's see.
And these are the ideas that I was coming up with back then. I think some of it's also from Dark Knight Rises, the metaphor of the pit, what it is like to be born inside of a pit. That's the entire opening to my story here, also. But as the story goes on, first 10 pages don't go too deep in that. So I actually realized as I was writing it, if I'm going to be presenting 10 pages at a time, I got to make sure somewhere in these first 10 you actually see and hear something about the real world that these characters inhabit.
Hmm.
So I was going to need to use some narration, write down specifically about the real world as soon as we get out of the metaphorical pit world. And spoiler alert, it goes on from there. I haven't even written it yet, but he ends up joining a gang because the world is now basically run by either the government, just a huge crumbling form of government, and then lots and lots of gangs, small time criminals, and then all the rest of the citizens who are just everyone's poor. It's like as much as there's no middle class today in the modern world, there's just an even bigger disparity. It really is. It's the communist nightmare. It's your socialist nightmare. Welcome to the Soviet States of America. I also took some inspiration from a book by it's like Kurt Schlesinger. I don't know how to even pronounce.
Schlesinger.
Yeah, I think that's it. People's Republic. It's a book about if the West and East Coast split off from the rest of the United States. So it's Middle America versus the coastal elites. So there's some inspiration from that a little bit. And
Interesting.
and
All right.
the main character is like average poor schlub in my story, poor schlub who's trying to rise up out of the ghetto. And you'll see at least hopefully you'll at least have enough interest in the beginning of the story to want to know where it goes from there. That's my main concern now writing it. I've written another 9 pages, so I'm almost up to the 20-page mark. But that's the last 9 pages were the part where I was starting to get really perplexed as to what should follow, what is next. The first 10 pages were a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
Here's the
I,
misc notes at the top.
all right. So yeah, misc notes. If there's an inside cover, that would make the odd numbers the end page. So I don't worry too much about page numbers because you can always put an ad. And you should put an ad in your comic book. Like, hey, like us on Facebook. Look out for issue
Mm,
2. Follow me on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel. There's all kind of things that you basically need to put an ad in for, you know?
okay,
So you don't, I wouldn't get too hung up on page numbering.
all right. Because
Um,
that did enter my mind though while I was writing it, just a little. But yeah, it wasn't too important to me. Just at the end of the page, it needs to be some kind of something to draw the reader's interest into flipping the
yeah.
page.
And
Yeah.
typically there is, there's all, you don't put page 1 on the inside front cover. That's just not a
Hmm.
thing for for the most part.
Yeah, that's usually like some kind of introductory or explanation or some
Or
thing
you
for
know
you to cover.
your credits page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my comics, it's typically the credits page. And in other people's comics, I've seen it left blank. In some high profile comic books. So it is what it
Yeah,
is.
I noticed when I was doing mine, the only page counting I did was in reference to figure out which pages were the centerfold.
Right.
Because I put a double page splash for the centerfold. So
Neat.
Oh, all right. I didn't do anything like yeah, where the staple would be
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the centerfold.
All right. So I'm not seeing a lot of spoken dialogue.
Yeah, no, the like especially in this first half, there's a tiny amount of dialogue. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking actually, but there's a lot of narration.
Okay.
So I'm thinking oh, ugh,
So
excuse me. Yes.
shall I just read it all?
Yeah,
Okay.
if one person wants to read all of it.
All right. Because the only thing I saw was all right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the only thing I saw was like a boy. Tell you what.
And yeah, there's a in the second set of 10 pages, which is not here. There's a bit more spoken dialogue, and there'll be more and more as the story goes on.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to be a lot of narration.
All right. So opening up page 1, panel 1 is a large panel. A woman is shrouded in robes, too dark to make out details, but not so dark you can't see what's happening. Carrying a child. The child is probably a toddler age or a bit older, and is also shrouded in cloth. The point being that they are featureless figures because this is a metaphor and not meant to represent a real event. Narration. I have a hard time talking about my family when anybody asks. Panel 2, smaller. The woman walks up to the mouth of some kind of well or pit, a short stack of bricks around the lip of it, so it sort of looks like a well. Panel 3, large. The woman drops the bundled child into the well. Narration. I didn't spend a lot of time around them. Page 2, panel 1, large. The bundle of cloth holding the child slams into the bottom of the pit with enough force that the child could not have possibly survived. Narration. Nothing I would ever call quality time. Panel 2, large. The form of the child is still dead seeming. Narration. Whether others talk about their family, I can't relate to anything they say. Panel 3, less large. The form of the child begins to stir, somehow alive. Narration. I wasn't an unhappy kid, I guess. Nothing I could complain about. And then we go on to page 3, panel 1, large, perhaps full page. The child sits up, perhaps signs of injury. Cuts scrape blood or such, looking weak. Narration. I spend a lot of time alone, I know that. Page 4. Panel 1, small. The boy looks around, and the pit is barren except maybe a tiny amount of random garbage. Panel 2, small, maybe larger. Similar to previous panel, except the boy looks upwards. Panel 3, rest of page. Upward angle on the boy looking at the mouth of the pit, far above this. A small circle of light surrounded by walls of dirt. Narration. I have many fond memories from back then. Page 5. Panel 1. Zoom in on the opening of the pit, what appears to be a figure looking down. Panel 2. Small panel, but the figure turns away and leaves. Panel 3. The boy looking up, gestures upward, trying to speak, but says nothing. Panel 4. The boy slumps against the wall, staring up at the exit of the pit, perhaps a little teary-eyed, haggard. Page 6. Panel 1. The boy looks down and closes his eyes, anguished, tired. Narration. I found ways to occupy my time on my own. Panel 2. A heavy piece of garbage lands next to the child, startling him as he hugs the wall. Panel 3. Small. The boy quickly turns to look up. Panel 4. Large. Zoomed in, but still indistinct. There are more figures at the mouth of the pit. Their eyes like tiny dots of light. Page 5. Smallish. The boy grips the wall while looking up, trying to make contact with the shrouded figures above him. The boy is in profile, so we are just looking at him. Here, hello. Page 7, panel 1, small. The figure looks disinterested, but some do stare down into the pit. Panel 2, repeat of panel 1, but a bit of trash begins raining down into the pit. Panel 3, small. The boy looking up, desperate, profile. Boy, help. Panel 4, repeat of panel 2, but some of the shrouded figures are turning away. Garbage continues to fall into the pit. Panel 5, small. Repeat of panel 3, but now the boy is hysterical. Help me! Someone help! Panel 6, small. Repeat of panel 4, but the shrouded figures have all turned away. Still more garbage rains down. Panel 7, small. The boy, perspective behind him as he grips the wall, garbage coating the bottom of the pit. Boy weekly, help. Page 8, panel 1, large. Bird's eye view of the edge of a city, Los Angeles skyscrapers in the distance. More normal-sized buildings up close with a large lot of things, or large lot of those old dome-shaped army buildings in the foreground. Only one of them is occupied while the rest are clearly abandoned. Narration: when I tell people about what it is like for me growing up, they always say something like, "That's sad," or "That's really depressing," or "Stop bumming me out, not sure why." It's not like anyone's doing much better than I am. Panel 2, large. The inside of the occupied domicile is crammed full of objects, everything someone would need to get by: a shower, shelves for clothing, a tiny kitchen and fridge, and in the back, furthest away the door, is a desk with a desktop PC and the main character sitting at it. The old CRT monitor, question mark, or would that be too much squalor? Narrator: all things considered, I think I'm doing quite nicely for myself. Page 9, panel 1, small. Me, still don't have a name.
It says MC, yeah, MC, so
MC.
it's just referred to as main character.
Oh, okay, got it. Still don't have a name for him. Leaving his tiny home, looking it up.
Locking it up.
Sorry. Narration: things have gotten better the longer I have been away from my hometown. Panel 2, large. Me turning away from his door and walking towards the city. Distant perspective as we see his home. His house is not only the only one with signs of life in it, but the block of identical domes.
Shit, did I fucking... Yeah, I was figuring how many typos are going to be in this.
Yeah.
Only one, I messed that up.
Yeah, but seemingly the only sign of life for quite a while.
Okay, you know what? It's supposed to be...
Okay.
Wait, yeah, not only the only one with signs of life. Actually, that is accurate. It's just mangled in the way I wrote it. Right. The point is that he's very far away from civilization here.
Okay.
Yeah, the only block with signs of life for quite a while.
Okay. Panel 3. Main character walking down the streets towards the light and signs of life in the distance. Panel 4. Sounds in the background. As the light fills more of the area, main character continues walking towards it. Panel 5, small. Close up on main character's hand as he pulls a folded knife out of his pocket and clutches it. Then we get to page 10, panel 1, large. Main character has reached the populated part of town. Dingy, run-down party stores and pawn shops separated by the occasional apartment building, people, and general levels of noise for town after dark. About 9 p.m., perhaps the final traces of sundown in the background. The main character turns to enter the nearest party store. Narration: I wish I didn't have to eat junk food, but no one in my wage bracket can afford any fresh food. Panel 2, small. Main character has already stowed his knife in his pocket again. He just pulls it out to make sure he didn't forget it, FYI, and he is now browsing for bags of chips. Narrator: I don't have it too bad. I still have my health. I still have my sanity. Panel 3, small. Main character paying for his snacks, chips, soda, and candy bar, while perhaps eyeing over skeevy-looking customers. This is probably our best look at main character. He looks plain and dressed in shabby, but otherwise unidentifying clothes. No huge labels or goofy text or wacky colors. Just jeans and a t-shirt. Hair is sandy but dark, kind of long. Short but straggly beard, pasty white hunky-ass cracker. Narration perhaps runs over from panel 2. Things could always be worse. More miscellaneous notes add more obvious squalor and danger from other people here.
Oh, is that the end? Damn, yeah.
That is the end.
Yeah, see, the very next panel would go into a bit more detail about the gangs and the criminal element. Wow, I forgot I didn't add any of that here.
All right. Well, that was 10 pages.
All right.
So you've presented a world. It's emotionally evocative. We start off with a kid being thrown down a well, and then garbage rains down on him. So that's an emotionally evocative set of images, and it certainly sets the tone that I think you want to set, which is society's disregard for humanity altogether.
Yeah, the
And
cheapening of human
yeah,
life.
the cheapening of human life, right? So you certainly set that tone, I think, very well. So,
Yeah, and these little metaphorical flashes, there'll be more of those, but
hmm
it's going to be more important for the beginning to set
right.
the metaphorical stage. And that's also, I don't like writing about a lot of depressing stuff normally. If people
You're
people
gonna
listen
fool
to our
me.
show, yeah, people listen to our shows, they know we like to have a good time. We like to have a laugh.
Yeah.
But I think also, I think it was Jim Norton who talked about that. Like a lot of stand-up comics usually have messed up minds.
Mhm.
Okay.
You
They
know,
do.
uh,
Um,
Positive
I
comments, Darth. Go ahead.
yeah. I want to start with a question. So, I just want to make sure I was reading it correctly. So,
okay.
is it safe to assume that the child in the well was the main character?
Oh yeah, yes, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay. I do like. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but like the transition from his early life as a child, obviously being thrown as well, to the transition of his apartment, which just looks like a nicer well.
Mhm.
Pretty
Yeah,
much, he's
yeah.
still living in this very small, cramped place.
Another form of solitary. Yeah.
Right. So pretty much like the same thing, just grown up. But that hasn't changed as much for him. And obviously, when you look at the city and the environment, it really hasn't changed much from the well.
Mhm.
Metaphorically speaking. So I like that. I do like the whole beginning setup, even though there wasn't a lot of dialogue. I am a fan of dialogue, but I do like a lot of
Mhm.
exposition setup. I do see that a lot of the visuals is what you're using to set up the story rather
Yeah.
than a lot of narration or dialogue. There's a lot of visual, leaving it up to the artist to
Yeah.
visually give you this impact, which is
At the same time,
which
yeah.
done right, is good as well. So I like how that was set up. There is it's not a quick rising setup, but it's like you're on that, like, those conveyors at the airport where
Mhm.
you're on and it takes you where you need to go. It's like, so it's not this big quick build up, but it's like carrying you along, this where you want to see where it comes
I'm
next.
wondering, should I have maybe packed some of these pages or even panels with a bit more detail? Because I use, like, right here in page one, it's only 3 panels. There's one page that's only a single panel. I'm wondering if I could have packed that with a little more information. I'm not
I mean,
sure how.
it depends. I mean, I think Preston would have a little more insight in this because, as far as, I mean, as a writer, I'm experienced, but as far as translating to tell the artist what to do, I'm not as experienced as Preston would be.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, Preston, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I think it does depend on the artist that you have too, because some would be more intuitive rather than others.
I mean, I do an effort to write to my art team, and like for instance, if you hired somebody who's known for their pinups, then you're gonna want to put a lot of pretty girls. You know. Uh, so if you've got a guy who's really good at depicting landscapes and cityscapes, or this is really evocative, or does like really good heavy inking, like Bradstreet, I think his name is, like that's then you're gonna want to write to that. But I don't think who your artist is here,
No.
so
I think what I had in mind was hopefully an artist that would be really, really great with, because that's the thing with my brother's first
mhm.
published comic, literally, is he got an artist who is really great at character expression. That's kind of what I think I need here,
Okay,
is somebody who's going to just absolutely get these characters, their bodies, their faces, stuff like
okay,
that. The rest of the details, the world and the city, that shouldn't be too hard to do, but that's also less important to me.
sure. So then, write to that artist, write to your idealized artist. So if you
Mm.
want somebody who's really good at facial expression, then you need to put in your scripts a lot of expressive faces.
I hope that I at least did enough of that here that they'd be able to get that, or even just whoever's reading it might be able
Right,
to visualize that in their mind.
Yeah.
right.
I mean, me, and this is just my impression. I mean, you can, it's you're the writer, so you could have completely different impression. But like when I look at this, the first images evokes in my mind like the style that for the way I see here, what I would like to see is kind of a Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns kind of feel.
Mhm.
That's what I feel when I read the build up to it.
Yeah, like especially light and shadow. I can
Yeah.
imagine that would be very important for this entire beginning sequence here. Lots of shrouded figures, dark areas, stuff like that. Yeah, and also the other thing is the artist for my brother's first comic. We can't really use him again because he was very late. There's a lot of problems with his schedule, so
Mhm.
I'd have to come up with a different artist
Well,
if I ever could make this.
there are plenty out there.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
uh,
luckily it's my brother who knows a lot of this stuff. I'm kind of taking from my brother.
right.
Reading his scripts. He knows a whole lot of artists that I've talked to that we've had a lot of conversations with. So yeah, I'd probably go
Good.
to him for that.
All right.
And Preston, I have a question for you as far
Go
as
ahead.
like the panels.
Sure.
Like when I started writing mine, like the panel sizes and stuff, is that something we really need to put in, or is that something the artist,
Mm.
when you know how many, if it's a 3 panel page or 4 panel page, he kind of has an idea how to set it up, or the stylistic of it, or
Yeah, my brother actually specifically he put in his scripts like at the beginning. It's like always up to the artist, however they want to lay this out,
yeah,
and so it was just suggestions from
gotcha.
him. But also at the same time, I think these would be good suggestions. But yeah, I don't want to tie any artist's hands with exact panel layout. So I actually tried to make this just kind of generic, just the panel and then the generic size of the panel. I'm not going to tell them the placement or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah, because that's how I did mine. I didn't put anything about the panels itself. I figured, I'm going to leave that up to the artist and
I
their
I mean,
stylistic
to
integrity.
me, if you hand in a script where you're just saying, okay, I want 5 panels on this page, you're going to end up with a book that probably looks like Marvel and DC, from like the Golden Age kind of stuff, you know.
Mhm.
And you can look up, I think, like Kirby layouts because like Kirby used like certain layouts over and over and over again, and like those were great comics, obviously.
Mm.
But then in the night, particularly with Image,
Yeah, yeah, they had those weird, things like going across the panel this way, and
right? I mean,
yeah.
and it's because like Image when it was founded didn't have any damn writers in it; they were all
Mhm.
artists. And so, if your artist is now creating your story, well, it's going to look really cool. But there might not be much story there. But nevertheless, they really started experimenting with having like stretching beyond panels and stuff like that. And I, unless it depends on the understanding you have with your artist, but
Mhm.
it's pretty rare that, for instance, you would hand in a script that say, okay, I want 5 panels on this page and whatnot, and an artist would come back with, wow, I had this really crazy idea for what if the character was just, this big imposing figure that was just took up the whole page, and then these panels kind of wrap around him or whatnot.
Mhm.
Like you're typically not going to get a lot of ingenuity. For the most part, I think your artists are looking at it like a paycheck.
Right.
Kind of like
Mhm.
you called the plumber over to fix the problem. They're there to fix the problem. The problem is you want to screen. Okay, how many panels? And they're just going to do it.
Right.
So I at least want to start that conversation going, and so I will put in. I really sit down and think about how the comic should look, and I will put that in the script, and then
Yeah, the
if
thing is, I don't want to constrain the artist. Sequence, the way I wrote it here, is kind of just for my own personal viewpoint. It's how I see the comic. It doesn't have to be the way the artist sees the comic. I would actually really like that if the artist was able to go and make some takeoff on these ideas. But at the same time, I'm also reminded of some of the difficulties my brother had in making his comic.
right,
The artist would keep coming back and rewriting stuff, and he'd like mangle a joke or completely demolish the pacing of a
hmm
page. And my brother would be like, no, you can't really do that because you kind of ruin the way that this is laid out, and
Right.
you lose the humor here. And so the artist came back and was just like, okay, you're going to have to tell me exactly what you want, every single note, beat for beat now.
Right. And that I think is how I want to approach the relationship I have with my artist is that they're I think there is less error if you simply make the script really explicit about what you want to see. So
Yeah,
I get very detailed about how I want the panels and how I envision the page, and I sit there and I visually think of the story and how I'm going to do it. You remember that the script for Guinevere issue 3, where I'm calling these two panels, these 2 page spreads, and the characters are in the middle talking, and around them are like arrayed the panels, and I'm calling out like this is the top left panel, it's the top right panel, and so on. And I've seen it in my mind, and I want to see it on the page. And if the artist has a better idea, cool, I'm all ears. But that's at least a good idea and a
You want
good
to give
place
him
to start.
a starting point. Yeah.
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 So
I want to be making sure that I'm communicating at least what I would like to the artist, what I think works best,
Yeah.
even
right,
in visual form. I might not be able to draw, but I know what I'd like to see.
hmm right. And so I think right now, just approaching this as you are going to deal with an artist you haven't even met yet, you need to make this explicit as possible. Like if you look at, for instance, Alien 3, right? It was a good movie, but
Mhm.
it had some problems. But it was David Fincher's some of his early work, and he's a good director.
Yeah,
But at the time, they were like, okay, this guy's a new up and coming director. He's going to do a great job. So they gave him a big movie, and the problem was is that he didn't have the clout to really say how the movie needed to be. So the executives were like, "No, there are certain things that got to happen," and that's why the movie kind of ended up being weird, you know.
executive meddling.
Yeah, executive meddling, and it takes a lot of clout and a lot of standing to go like, "No, no, no, it's got to be like that." And so if you kind of take that relationship between artists and collaboration and really apply it to scripts here, it's unless this high profile artist, comes down and says, you know what, I like you guys. I'm going to draw your book. In which case you're like, awesome, whatever you want, Mr. High Profile Artist, that would just be great. But, I think you can kind of dismiss that dream scenario and just figure that you're going to be working with, you're kind of a relative unknown. So you're going to be working with a relative unknown. So, be clear, be explicit, give them clear, clean directions to work from. I think you can't go wrong with that, in my
All right.
opinion.
I think I did an okay job with that, but yeah, I wanted to make sure to get the story elements written down as fast as possible. For me, that's like usually the biggest problem is I got a great idea. Let me write it down before I forget it,
Yeah.
because that for me, my memory is so faulty. If I come up with a really great idea, like 2 hours from then, I'll be like, "Oh, what was that great
Oh,
idea?
wait.
I forgot."
Oh, Ignition. He's an artist, uh, and so he's like, hey, if you need a guy, we may have found an artist right there for you. So
Oh, oh,
let's just ask him. Uh, so
yeah.
I I,
Maybe ask him
I
what he would
think
like.
he's saying that he wants more artistic freedom. But I gotta say, if you look at my body of work, White Lily 1, the very first issue, I did not have a comic book script for it. I had a screenplay, and look, I was new to comics. I'm like, okay, well, you people draw stuff, and they're like, yeah, no problem. Let's take your screenplay, and we're gonna. And I was unhappy with how it came out. Like
Hmm.
I was like, there were certain emotional moments that like they weren't given any room for, and there were certain scenes they kind of cut,
I was
and
actually going to say that if I ever had time to do a proper review, I'd say because I read up to issue 4.
right,
And it was like, I really like this story. I'm really invested in it. But there's a lot of panels where it's just like, this panel's just here in the middle of nowhere. Here's just a circle with somebody's face.
right,
What's that doing there?
yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
little weird.
Which
Yeah.
one? Yeah, I mean issue.
Yeah, definitely issue 1.
Right, issue 1. Right, yeah.
But
And
definitely some of the other issues after that, too. It
right,
definitely got better. but it was just like panel layout was sometimes a little weird.
Right. And so, based on kind of how issue 1 turned out, then I started to go, maybe I need to take more responsibility for how the book looks and not just sit back and go, well, I'm the writer, I'm not a picture person. And so that's where I started to go, okay, I'm gonna call out how many panels there are per page. I'm gonna call out what we're seeing, and in my opinion, the books have gotten better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like what Ignition just said in his last comment, he said, you know, a little but good communication. I think that with me, just being in industry and stuff that I've been in and other things that I've done, it's like I obviously as a writer, I'm gonna, you know, put whatever I feel I needs to be in the actual script, but I need vocal. I need to have a good vocal communication with whoever is going to collaborate with me. You know, the initial one for me would be like, you know, to just listen, this is what I'm looking for, and verbally give them some ideas of what, you know, I see for the overall theme, you know, of the book, what I'm looking for, how I'd like it to feel. So they get that impression right from the get go and then get into the script.
Yeah. A good back and forth would be important, I would say.
So we got that. I think your main character might need a name at some point.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing, though, is I think that was true for my brother too. Is like he had this idea for his character for Laylee, but he had to go onto Google and start searching up baby names for Middle Eastern women.
Okay.
And I was like, oh man, that sounds like work.
Right.
What am I doing? Yeah. What am I doing here? A job? Psh. So
yep. My main character in my novel, I spent when I first started writing it, I spent 2 hours looking up female Roman names, and going through the entire alphabet until I found one that I liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that actually sounds kind of fun. My brother because he found Laylee, because, you know, it was like Iranian, I think, looking for Iranian, Persian, Middle Eastern types of names, and he found Laylee, and the definition is like a thing done at night. And it's like, oh, that's very werewolfy. It's perfect. But yeah, it's going to take some time. And yeah, until then, I just want the story beats, the story elements down.
Right. Now, one thing I would recommend for you to keep in mind is that this is not a screenplay. This is a comic book. Therefore, we can't really show motion and action too well. We have to instead show a series of stills.
Mm-hmm.
And so in one of these panels, page 10, panel 2, main character already has stowed his knife. Okay, well, how are you going to there's no way to show.
This is a little bit of mangled. Right. It was almost stream of consciousness when I wrote this.
Okay.
It's just kind of to the artist, the understanding that the knife, he's not holding the knife anymore.
Right. Okay.
But that's getting the motion down. Yeah.
Right.
It's something that me and my brother have talked a lot about when we like review normal American comics versus manga, is just how much manga does better at like motion and character expression, stuff like that.
Yeah. I would I would add another panel on page 9 and it's just a still, you know, of his hand going back in his pocket again, you know, like that's where you see it's like it's getting put away again. Like he sees it and then it's getting put away, you know what I mean? And it gives you a feeling of, when you see it like that, it gives you a feeling like it's like reassurance, kind of like I see it and he puts it back.
Yeah. But that's the purpose. Yeah.
And I feel you need to approach writing with more confidence, because, you know, like, look, if I don't know much about music collaboration because I'm not a damn musician, but I got to figure if I was, and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna do like a impromptu playing or something at a party or whatever in front of an audience, and I have a partner that I'm kind of thrown in with. If the partner's really unsure, like, maybe we should play in 3/4 time or maybe 5/8. You know, like I'm gonna start to have a bad feeling. You know, so if you write from a more confident, like, no, I have the vision. This is the vision. This is what it is. Then I think the whole process will go smoother.
Actually, I'm kind of wondering exactly what you mean by that, because this is my first script.
Well, all right.
So I am experimenting.
You have a lot of, I don't know, and all right. So like look, let's just open up here. Page 1. Shrouded in robes, too dark to make out details, but not so dark can't see what happened in carrying child. Child is probably toddler age or a bit older. Well, we'll
Oh
decide.
yeah,
What
yeah,
is it? The point is that they're having featureless. So then it's right. Feature like one, the writing becomes a lot cleaner and a lot more succinct if you're like a toddler. Is looked upon by featureless figures down a pit, and the kind of permeates the script. There's a lot of well, maybe. So let's. I
yeah,
mean, I
Yeah, it's,
could.
it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Right.
Just and also I know some people probably disagree with this. It's better to go into something overconfident because you can always lower the confidence level than it
Right.
is to manufacture confidence later. So that's how I've always gone into
yeah.
things.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something because I was trying to also take in mind like what is the artist going to draw? I guess I should probably kind of come down harder
You,
on
you
what
you
I
need to
want.
come into this with the opinion that the artist is going to draw what you tell them to draw.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's their
Yeah,
job.
I mean, you don't, yeah, like obviously you don't want to force them into a style that they're not comfortable with. That I
Right.
get, yeah, but at the same time, as far as the story is going, you don't want to leave that up to the artist to determine where the story
yeah.
goes
Well,
because
I
that
mean,
is your wheelhouse.
this was also kind of I banged this out really fast. I wanted to get the ideas out there
Yeah,
so
Sure.
that I could go back and do
Okay.
revisions after the fact.
yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
yeah, completely.
So,
And one little constructive too, I would say this is just me. Like obviously the beginning of it, which I did like the way it was set up. It's a flashback, obviously, and then it comes
Hmm.
back to him. I've always liked to in flashback kind of situations like that to bookend them to where like the first panel would be him like a close up of him lighting a cigarette, saying something, and then it goes into the flashback, and then it comes back to him. You know what I mean? Like even
Yeah.
for example, like if you started out with him pulling that knife out, looking at it, then it goes into the flashback, and then after the flashback, he's putting the knife away. It gives
Yeah.
you kind of that bookend feel, and then and it wraps it up nicely.
Hmm. Yeah, that would be pretty good. I did want to do that, but also, that's actually good. I wanted to jump into like the whole darkness, but at the same time, now that I think about it, it's really confusing for a new reader trying to figure out, okay, so this whole thing takes place in a pit
right.
until page 6,
Right.
until when it suddenly doesn't. Yeah, book ending. Yeah, I think I should probably do that then.
And
Where do I write this
all right.
down?
So
Yeah.
we have a character, the nameless one, the
Yes,
one born in the pit,
the nameless.
the nameless one born in the pit. He reminds me a bit of Bane. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Because
And my
I took
mind's
some
immediately
inspiration.
going to Big Lebowski. He's the dude.
yeah.
The dude. He's. I'm not Lebowski. I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
That's right.
And yes, I
Yeah.
I agree with this comment. You should actually, recruit your artist based on what you like and what serves your story, not his price.
Pretty
So,
much.
yeah, and so you decide the tone, and you put it in the script, and then you go find an artist who matches that tone. I think the best advice. And for Guinevere and the Divinity Factory, like I didn't have my artist picked out. I instead auditioned them. I paid them their rate and I gave them page 2, and I said, "Show me." And like I just looked at different people's versions of my work, or my writing, and I'm like, I like that one. So
Hmm.
that may be how you approach it.
Yeah, and I tell the people like when I did my novels, the same thing. I know crowdfunding's popular, and I know you want to get the funds beforehand, but if you want anything that you're creating and you have a passion in it, it's something you really want, you got to invest something other than your time. So
Mm,
there's going to be some investment out of pocket. I mean, there's always a risk in any business venture. So if you're again, like I know crowdfunding is popular, but
right.
if you really want if you're passionate about it, you really want to produce something, understand that I think you have to invest some kind of money at the outset to get it going. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? To make sure it's done right.
In our case, we have no money. That was the idea from the very beginning. Is
Yeah.
my
I mean,
brother.
I'm not knocking it. I mean, crowdfunding is I mean, it's produced a lot of good stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
That again, I could go on to a whole spiel about a certain comic-based movement,
Yeah.
which should have been doing exactly that, finding ways to match writers with artists.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Like my Kickstarter, and this is the way I look at it too. You obviously want to go into it saying it's going to be successful. So the money I invested, I recouped with the Kickstarter. You know what I mean? So that's how I looked at it. There wasn't an investment, but I recouped it with the Kickstarter. So
Yeah, we'd have to have savings first. That's the thing, though, is with my brother, he actually did. I think he's done 2 crowdfunding campaigns. The first one got his first comic made. The second one didn't make the money to actually get anything made, and that means automatic refund. We didn't soak everyone who donated and was like, oh, you get nothing.
Sure.
They got their money back, or rather,
I mean, the thing about comics that makes it very different than movies, I guess, unless you're talking about the small indie movies, is that there's really no such thing as, or at least very rare, that you find a writer. I mean, I guess, when you get to like the big 2, Marvel, DC, okay, now we have writers. But for the most part, when you're looking at small indie comics, for the most part, it's the creator, which is the guy who is essentially putting the money together. Because everyone's got ideas. And everyone thinks their ideas are good.
yeah,
And
they're not always right.
yeah, they're rarely right, but it takes a special kind of person to sit and go, huh, you know what, my idea is not any good. Let's go with that guy's idea over there. So what happens in comics is that somebody takes the leap of faith to go, I like my idea enough to to get people committed to it in terms of money and to make an arrangement. And so really everybody in comics is a writer, and in terms of like indie comics is a writer producer for the most part. You are there to not only hatch a vision but to get people excited about it.
yeah, yeah.
That's your job.
Well, it also kind of reminds me of when it comes to making movies, is Clerks. He had to basically just max out a whole bunch of credit cards to get the movie made, and it's like that is the ultimate gamble. If that movie hadn't taken off, we'd never hear about Kevin Smith ever again.
Yeah, movies are hard though. Movies is a huge financial investment. And when it's indie stuff, rarely do you have backers. You know what I mean? So that's a huge investment needed for movies. So,
and that was right at the cusp of the popularity of independent movie making. Was when Clerks came out. It was like proof that you can make a movie for less than $20 million or $50 million or whatever back then.
But do they still do that thing? Because I remember way back, the 70s, 80s, people used to go to libraries or stuff and like rent Super 8 cameras and stuff to do. I mean, is that something that still people can do, or you can actually like?
I mean, you don't shoot anything on a Super 8 these days. You're shooting it. I mean, look.
Those
can be shot on an iPhone. So
yeah, true. You could do that.
Now you have YouTube. Yeah.
Exactly.
And now it's an 8-second movie,
right,
of somebody getting hit in the balls.
TikTok.
Yeah,
or cats.
Exactly. And at some point, I want to know what the conflict is that's driving your story, unless it's simply making your way in a society that doesn't care about you.
That's the thing, is as the story will go on, and I think probably my biggest flaw in the story is making sure people know it's going up and up. Like the ending of page 20, what I have planned to write is that it's suggested he go and join one of these criminal gangs, which then leads into the next one where he finally takes part in some of the craziness that you see. You get to see more of the crime and the squalor and the bloodshed. I'm not sure how violent I should make this, so I'm gonna like start from a PG-13 perspective of like, we don't need big tit decapitations or anything. That's what me and my brother usually refer to it when you go for the R rating, as big tit decapitations.
Right.
But from there, he kind of takes over the criminal gang, and then he leads it upwards until they become an army. That's kind of the ultimate perspective. I'm not sure how to get that into the first issue or even into the second issue.
Right.
Because there's got to be a build-up. That's kind of how I came
Okay,
up with
I
the
mean,
idea anyway.
well, all right. Let's see. So the main conflict is this guy. It's basically this is a gang story, right?
Yeah.
Well, one, we don't really need. All right. Well, the well thing is a little unrealistic, right?
Hmm.
Okay, and you know, like you're showing that you're like, there's no way this baby could survive the
Yeah.
fall,
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that was clear right from the beginning that it's like
right?
it's fantasy, it's dark fantasy-ish,
Right,
but it's also unrelated to the modern world.
right.
It's
But
all metaphor.
you could compress the 6 pages in the pit down to like three.
Yeah.
You know, you could walk in, you know, like whatever. You know, we're throwing the baby down the well on page one. On panel two, people walk by and throw garbage down the pit. On panel three, a boy climbs out. We understand who that boy is,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And you mentioned that he meets someone, so there's like an inspirational figure.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that'll be coming up later. The thing I'm trying to think of is the boy in the pit, because of course, the metaphor has to be that he climbs out. I figured that could go on for a few later issues, the
Right.
metaphor of climbing up from the pit.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course after he gets out of the pit, we don't really need the metaphor as much.
Well, I mean, that's only important if it actually matters. So you have to decide, kind of going forward, what is it in the his conflict regarding the gang that's going to relate to the pit? Because if the answer is nothing, then you can just cut the damn pit. You know,
Well,
like
no,
yeah,
it's like his disconnect from other human beings. Like in the thing that I wrote, you see figures hovering above. Those are basically other humans
right.
who
No,
he
I got it. So
and
he
the
doesn't like humanity, right?
yeah, and
And humanity doesn't like him.
yeah. Well, he's always just disconnected. It's part of the thing is he joins this gang. He actually finds some friends, some people he can get along with.
Hmm.
And they're not exactly friendly, but he can cooperate them with them for like the first time in his life. And then
Yeah.
one of the things I had coming up with the idea is when he finally climbs up out of the pit, he gets to the edge, he climbs up, he rolls on his back, he looks around, and all he sees is just a bigger pit with nobody. There's never been anyone there, just a bit more garbage, bigger walls, more empty space. And,
Right.
and that's as far as I got with the metaphor, is once he climbs out of the pit, all he finds is just another bigger pit.
But I think this story would make a better backstory that you work in later when he's trying to navigate a relationship. And he's
Mhm.
relaying a story, and now we have a flashback sequence. Because, I mean, look, it's not bad, it's compelling, but if the story is about a guy in a gang, I say get to the guy in the gang faster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
that's what I was gonna say. I mean, you could even mirror it. I mean, there's a lot of literary ways you could do this. You could start out with him as the baby in the pit climbing out. Okay, then he goes to the store and there's a kerfuffle, let's say, and he escapes through the sewers and he's running through the sewers, and then he gets to an open manhole above him. There's a ladder and there's an open manhole and there's people up there looking down, just like they were in the pit.
Mhm.
And this time, a hand reaches out, and that's the gang basically, and that's when he first meets them. You see what I'm saying? Then that springboards you into the issue too.
Yeah,
right.
that'd actually probably be stronger than what I actually already have. Because that was another
And
thing I
yeah,
was
and
thinking is,
what I would say is, yeah, if you
mhm,
if you want to make the pit, uh, what you have to answer in order for the story to work, depending on how you want to go, but it seems like the gang becomes his family. At least I would suggest that,
yeah,
because that's often what gangs are for.
Right. Replacement families.
Yeah, replacement families. And so we need to see essentially him come into the gang. So we need to see the gang kind of maybe rescuing him. And then he has this feeling of that he owes them.
Security they never had.
Yeah, as well as security. So,
yeah,
that would be good to see. And then later on, when we're seeing the gang do bad things, but he still stays loyal to them, we understand why. It's because they saved him from the pit.
All right. I'm wondering how much I should spoil because, of course, I have a bunch of this written in my head. It's all in my head right now. I just haven't written it down yet. But the thing is, you know, he joins the gang. He finds a few people he gets along with and a lot of people that he doesn't get along with. You know, they're criminals basically, so they're not very friendly, and nobody trusts each other. And also the purpose is he joins the gang. The entire idea is there's hundreds of these gangs. They form, they commit crimes, they get busted, or they betray each other and fall apart. And this is like one of the first gangs that won't do that with his leadership. He's going to provide leadership to them so that they manage to remain together. And then he finds a few members of this gang that he can actually trust. But there's also going to be another character who's not part of the gang who convinces him that he needs this organization in his life.
This all sounds great. I look forward to getting to it, but I'm just saying. We've read over a pit and his emergence from it, and if this is a story about a guy in a gang, I think the gang needs to be involved in that emergence.
Yeah. That is actually the thing, is
story better.
Him running through the sewers and then climbing out of or not even necessarily in the sewers, but a gang, one of these criminal elements actually coming to his rescue. Because that's one of the things is in at like page, I think 16, he goes back out to the convenience store and he actually gets accosted by some other criminals. And then that's when somebody comes up and helps him fight them off. I was wondering how much violence should even be there in the script.
In this kind of story, again, this is just my opinion. In this kind of story, this seems like that violence fits. I don't think this should be a PG kind of thing. This seems more of a rated R kind of feel to it.
Feel free for big tit decapitations.
Well, the thing right now in the script, what happens is they come up. He has this guiding figure arrives in his life, and is the guiding figure right now, because it's so underwritten, she just says kill them, and then he pulls out the knife and opens it, and then the gang members just decide, all they do is they hurl insults while backing away, and everyone backs away. There's absolutely no violence. And so I was wondering, it doesn't really sell the idea that he was in danger if it backs down, if it de-escalates that easily. So I'm wondering, does he need to kill somebody? Does he need to stab or slash somebody? Does he need to get hit? Does he need to get punched? And I kind of didn't want to add any of that because it would be like, oh, that's typical. But at the same time, it seems like there's no danger yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways. Either he has to fight his way to prove it, or he's got to be such an imposing figure that they back away.
And he's not going to be imposing. No,
that's what I was saying. From the sound of it, it didn't feel like he's this big imposing figure. So, especially when you have numbers in a gang, backing away to me doesn't seem very feasible.
This is actually partially based on something that actually happened to me. It was it was over a year ago. I was walking to the convenience store. Some crazy guy was out on the corner, and he's like karate kicking at cars and yelling at everybody. And then he sees me. I'm walking up, and I'm not trying to bother anyone. I'm not a threat at all. I usually carry a knife because it's kind of a bad neighborhood. I didn't this time. And he comes up to me, and he's yelling at me. And then he punches me in the upper lip. And I was already partially drunk, so it just staggers me a little bit. And I think he saw that he didn't knock me down, and so he just wandered off. And that is the story. And so I go into the place and have them call the police and dab the blood off of my lip. There's like a scar on the inside of my upper lip. It's like a bump for like months and months. That's kind of partially what this element is based off. But it doesn't really work in a comic. It's a little too true to life. But that's also one of the things I wanted to relate that in the story is in real life. sometimes all you need is to brandish your weapon. Sometimes all you need to do is show them, I have a knife, back off.
Sure.
But yeah, it doesn't, in this story, kind of doesn't work as well, because you need to see that the world has really crumbled, society has crumbled, the law enforcement is gone, the government is almost non-existent. So yeah, I need to. That's the thing, is this is all like partially. I rewrote one part of the first 10 pages to make it a little more clear that society is bad.
Right.
This is not even like a first draft, basically.
All right. Well, feel like we've given you something to work with.
Yeah, I got some ideas now. That's what I really needed, is because again, this is like my first story that I've ever really, besides something from grade school.
Yeah.
I used to write little stories in grade school, though, when they
Mhm.
had projects for us. It's been a long time, so I think really there's some good ideas here. There's some really good ideas.
Yeah, no, I mean the ideas are there. There's a story there, that can be told and should be told. As writers, it's just our job to make that story intriguing.
Yeah, that's my real worry, is that somebody's, like with a lot of comics that I've read, I read the first couple of pages and I'm bored, and it's like, why should I keep reading this? I want to make sure somebody reads my story and is like, I want to know what happens at least in the next page, enough
Yeah.
times that they read at least one issue. If I can get them to read the whole issue, I might be able to get them to read more issues.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm looking through Darth's script here. I'm seeing a whole bunch of captions.
Well,
Like
we did the
captions.
first 10 pages. We're supposed to pick up on page 11.
Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right. Let me
Yeah,
come
we
down.
read all these. Remember?
Yeah. Okay. Page 11.
All right.
Okay. Let's see.
So where we left off was he talks about, beginning the caption talks about what happened briefly. Then he goes off to save Kali from the ASOG. And we left off with him right
Yeah,
there.
we have. All right. So we have Kali, who's gay,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, he kind of Luke Skywalker's off the plank, and then he's rescued by the
Archer.
captain as Archer, and who's Dumont?
Dumont was the captain of the ASOG.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's two airships here. Archer ship is an Inerta. The ASOG is Dumont's ship, and Kali
okay,
was the commander on that ship, and he
Okay.
went to save him because he was going to be executed.
All right. So we got. All right. So there's only three of us. How do you want to
Yeah,
assign the
so,
parts?
I'll if you can do Archer,
Okay.
I'll do Kali. Dumont has a few lines, so if you want to do Dumont, patriarchal ape.
Yeah.
And then there's a Kitsu speaks a few times. I'll do her.
Okay.
And do you want to do narrator, person?
Sure. So I'm narrator and Archer.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Kali lands deftly on the deck of the Nimerta in front of Archer, who is standing with his hands on his hips.
Is the antagonizing cheddar really necessary? They want us dead.
It is always necessary, Kal. It is how I remain sane in an insane world. Panel 2. Dumont stands on the deck of the ASOG, his face furious, pointing as crewmen scurry about the deck.
I'll do Dumont. Oh, yeah, you do Dumont.
Yeah, me. I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you waiting for, you fool? Man the cannons and blow that ship out of the sky.
Archer and Kali run for the deck towards the helm and navigation panel. I suppose we should get moving.
Mastering the obvious always did take you some time.
Panel 4. Archer stands before the navigation panel, Kali at his side. This may be a bit shocking for you. Just know I will be okay. Do not touch me and stand back. Archer places his hands on the orbs, and once again the shocking green energy engulfs him and his face in a pained grimace. Kali stands in the background, his face in shock. Ah!
What in the name of God? Archer!
Page 12, panel 1. Splash centerfold with page 13. The ASOG is firing its cannons upon the Nimerta, which is on the starboard side, and below the ASOG, the cannonballs are glowing green, being infused with
Nomenon.
Yeah. Dumont is standing on the starboard rail, his mouth open in a scream, pointing his sword at the Namerta. The Namerta is making a quick 180-degree U-turn midair, speeding away from the ASOG, a cannonball hitting one of the
Numenon, yeah.
repulsors on the hull.
Just think of it like Tides of Numenera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Page 13.
It's the same, yeah, this is
panels
just
1.
explaining because it's a centerfold.
Okay. Oh, so it's the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I wasn't sure how to word that, so I just put the description on both pages.
Fair enough. All right.
Okay.
Page 14. Panels 5. Archer removes his hand from the navigation orb, his face weary. Kali looks at him concerned.
You have quite a bit of explaining to do. What I just witnessed is not a normal part of piloting an airship.
Panel 2. Kali thumbs over his shoulder to the smoke rising from the starboard aft side of the hull. Where the repulsor was hit, Archer looks in the same direction.
Also, I think we lost something.
Both men run to the aft starboard side. I will explain everything, Kal, as soon as we see what happened back here.
Your cockiness got us hit is what happened.
Upward view at Kali and Archer looking over the hull at the destroyed repulsor. Shite! They hit the bloody repulsor dead on.
I hope the cock measuring contest with Dumont was worth it. He will chase us to the ends of the earth.
It was. The Namerta is the fastest ship in the fleet. Even down a repulsor, it will outpace the ASOG. Archer and Kali embrace each other.
Thank you, Archer. No other man would have come to my aid.
I'm just glad I made it in time. Page 15, panel 6. 2 men are now sitting in the captain's chair of the Namerta. Archer is pouring Kali a drink. So tell me, what caused all this?
Ask the man who was being consumed by his airship just a few minutes ago. My tale isn't quite as intriguing, but
Close up of Kali's face, looking at Archer.
you should already know.
Close up of Kali's face, eyes closed and head downturned.
They found out.
Archer leans over and places a hand on Kali's shoulder. You knew the risks we both did, even when we were together those many years ago.
Of course. However, you fancy both. Easier for you to be you. You married a woman.
Kali grips his glass tightly through gritted teeth.
I did my job, Archer, and I did it well. It shouldn't matter.
You're right, it shouldn't, but this is the world we live in. Panel 6, close-up of Archer's face. And despite its vulgarities and intolerance, I will always care about you, my friend. Page 16, panels 4. Kali leans back and takes a long drink. Kali, panel 2. Kali rubs his head, looking at Archer.
Now you have much explaining to do. All I know is you are wanted for murder of the entire crew of this ship, a ship I just witnessed attempting to kill you. I feel they are related.
Panel 3. Archer stands up and looks out the window of the cabin, which looks out at the aft of the airship at the receding clouds. Indeed, I am a murderer, Kal, but not of the crew, although I am responsible. Panel 4. Close-up of Archer's face, his eyes closed. It started with Kitsu. My dear wife was not the person I thought she was. Page 17, panel 6, panel 1. Scenes shift to the engineering room of the Namerta. Pipes carrying steam and Numenon line the room, and going into the large Numenon core. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep mangling that. In the center of the room, it is a large brass cylinder. In the center is a large domed window glowing with the green Numenon. It is housed within. Before it stands Kitsu holding a wrench and a bottle filled with some of the Numenon fluid.
Wait, it's spelled differently here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I misspelled it on one of them.
Archer stands before her. Caption, I found her in the engineering room. She was taking, Numenon from the core. I was confused, so confused. Archer, Kitsu, what are you doing in here? This is dangerous, my love. Whoever Kitsu is.
Well, you know what? Patriarchal didn't have a lot of lines, so go ahead. You can do
Yeah,
Kitsu.
okay. I'm doing this for us, Archer. Please forget this happened.
Archer holds Kitsu by the shoulders. Just being in here could get you arrested and me court-martialed. What is the meaning of this?
If I succeed, that won't happen. We can be free, and the injustices to our homeland will be avenged.
Kitsu placed her hand on Archer's cheek. What in God's name are you talking about?
My darling, I do love you, but with every ounce of my being, but our first meeting was not by chance. I'm an agent for the Imperial Shogunate. I was tasked to bring the secrets of Nomenon to the Empire. I was tasked to seduce you.
Panel 4, close-up of Archer's face. He is in complete shock. Caption, I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't.
But that grew to real love. I must complete my mission, however. Don't you see? I'm doing this for us. We can balance the scales of power. We can leave this place and return home to Japan.
Panel 5, Archer's face is pained. You cannot do this, Kitsu. I cannot let you. This is folly. I am sworn to my duty, my oath. Panel 6, close-up of Kitsu's face. I didn't know what to do. She was a spy against the Empire. She was committing treason on my ship, my adopted country. She was betraying everything I loved. She was betraying me.
You can't stop me, my love. You won't stop me. This is not your homeland. These are not your people.
Page 18, panel 6, side view. Kitsu turns from the Nomenon core to continue her siphoning. Archer stares at her in disbelief. I had to make a decision. My training kicked in. Panel 2, same side view. Kitsu put the wrench on the valve with her back turned to Archer. Archer reaches for his pistol. How could I even fathom doing this? Even now, I see it clearly, as if in the moment, watching in horror. I want to yell at myself, stop! Same side view. Archer points and fires his pistol, shooting Kitsu in the back. Her body arches backward, blood spurting from her wound. Her face is in shock. A ghostly image of her soul bursts from the body in front of the Numenon core window that is glowing brightly as if being sucked into the core. I killed her. I killed my wife. It was impulse. To this day, I don't even remember thinking. I just did my duty. Panel 4, Archer kneels and hold the body of a dead Kitsu. The ghostly image of her soul is being sucked into the window of the Numenon core. Only her head and outstretched arm is visible as the rest of her soul is being absorbed into the brightly glowing core. What I did not realize was the inexplicable events that would follow. Panel 5, close-up a Numenon core window flowing with green energy within the ghost of Kitsu looking out in fear and panic, her hand on the glass.
I guess I should read this part.
Yes.
Kitsu's voice is ghostly, drawn in, hazy bubble. Only Archer hears it in his mind. What have you done? How could you? How could you?
Somehow Kitsu's soul became trapped in the core. I could hear her in my mind screaming and raged. But what would happen next? It was even worse. Panel 6, Archer places his hands on the window of the core, looking at Kitsu's trapped soul. A translucent green bubble of energy surrounds him in the core. Perhaps it was her rage and anguish. Somehow she became one with the core, unlocking secrets of the Numenon that the engineers and alchemists had yet to discover. All I know is only I was somehow protected, frozen in place. Page 19, panel 6. Outside view of the Nimerta. It is flying somewhere, the British countryside. The crew stands on the deck, going about their business as green beams of light shoot out the bow of the ship, forming a circular green portal in front of the ship. Although still below with Kitsu in the core, she sent me visions of what was occurring outside. Panel 2. The bow of the Nimerta enters the portal. Kitsu trapped in with some force within the Numenon forces I still not understand. She opened a doorway. That is the only word I can describe for what I saw. Captain Emery stands on the helm with his eyes wide in shock, looking at the swirling green vortex that has engulfed his ship. Captain Emery, by all that is holy, what is that? Hard to port. Now, coxswain, quickly. Panel 4, as the Nimerta goes through the swirling portal, crewmen going through the contort in pain and silent screams as their bodies are vaporized. They were doomed. There was nothing I could do. Panel 5, Captain Emery shields his face as he too is engulfed in the portal and begins to be vaporized. As I stood paralyzed, I remember my studies at the academy. Scientists spoke about theoretical methods of travel. They called them wormholes. Panel 6, the Nimerta is now exiting the portal, coming out on the other side, somewhere over the ocean. Not one of the crew is on the deck, all of them vaporized. Passing through this gateway, this wormhole killed every last man on board. In an instant, it brought the ship from Britain to over the Pacific coast of China in an instant. Page 20, panel 1. Finally, free of his paralysis, Archer stands on deck alone, in shock, with his holding his head in his hands. Kitsu's rage trapped into some force, and the
Tapped
Numanon.
into.
What?
Tapped into.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Kitsu's rage. Sorry, tapped into some force, and the Numanon, and somehow
Numanon.
shielded. Whatever. I'm gonna call it protoculture, as far as I'm concerned.
Protoculture.
And,
Oh,
yeah,
I love that Robotech reference.
Yeah, and somehow shielded me from the deadly effects of the wormhole. So there we go.
Yeah.
All right. All right. We start with positives. It's good. I think it's pretty clean. I don't see a lot of fat on the story. So, and see, so it's, we have
She's shipping. She's shipping already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Irish likes shipping.
Yeah.
The crime of shipping.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing wrong with that when you're doing indie stories.
No Raylos here, Irish. No Raylo in my story. Let it go.
Please, no. Please. So somebody else, Numino. Every single time I was playing that Tides of Numenera, I was thinking, like, is it Tides of Numanumaga?
But yeah, it's a compelling story. We have characters that we care about doing interesting things. It's a pretty rich world.
Very swashbuckling, but also some high tech. You know what kind of reminds me of Farscape. The whole point
I said that this is like a steampunk Farscape, basically.
Yeah.
Farscape, Farscape is part of it. Farscape and Firefly.
Firefly, yeah.
Yeah.
Firefly and Serenity. Not Serenity, that's not canon because they die.
Yeah.
Too many people die in Serenity, so it's non-canon.
Once you kill Alan Tudyk, there's a problem.
Exactly. You kill off our most beloved comic relief ever. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Let's take that, J.J. Abrams. Oh no, wait, not J.J. Abrams. Hold on, wait. Freaking, who's the guy who co-wrote, Firefly?
I forgot the writers.
It was Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon
was the creator.
Joss Whedon, the creator. Yeah, co-writing. Yeah. I credit him with co-writing because it was probably somebody more talented who did the real work on that show.
I was going to say, I don't know how he did that and then ruined Justice League the way he did.
Yeah,
I can't associate the two. I don't understand.
Yeah, there's no other shows that I've watched of his that is like, oh man, this is like Firefly. This is amazing. No, I don't care. Angel, no. What is this? Oh, this crap. But yeah, and those Firefly and Farscape really great inspirations for anything. Really powerful, great characters. Huge tragedy in their backstories, in their lives. In their stories as they go forward.
Right. And they both have the trope, which is the hero too, of that ragtag crew, the Misfits and the ragtag crew, which is
greatest hero in the galaxy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very Malcolm Reynolds.
Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy is basically the same thing too. It's that ragtag crew of Misfits.
Yeah. One guy, the leader. How many other characters are there going to be in this? Because so far there's only 2.
Yeah. I have, it may change, but I'm thinking 5. 5 is usually a good number for this kind of crew.
Yeah.
And that's like the basic skeleton you need to run an airship.
Yeah, you don't want
those 5.
You don't want a whole full crew for this either. Yeah.
Right. Right. Like I said, they're gonna an airship does have a full crew, and in my mind it's usually about 20 to 30 people. Mm-hmm. But you can do it with 5 if they're skilled.
In terms of constructive not too much, but tonally, you're kind of establishing the story as a melodrama, and that's cool. Like, there's plenty of exciting melodrama. Like, the Latin American world runs on freaking melodrama. Mm. But we have a lot of characters with a lot of big revelations. And like every time we're turning a page, there's like another big revelation of it and stuff and love and it's always about love and feeling and loss. Like, so we're setting up these kind of whirlwind emotional relationships, and
And it reminds me of Farscape. That's exactly.
Yeah.
You're describing Farscape.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I am a wordy writer, and I'm not writing a novel here. I'm writing a comic book series. So I don't, whereas in my books, that stuff's revealed over time. You know what I mean? And in a series, I want to try to just establish some of this right from the get-go, because I'm not going to make this 20 issues. You know, even though as far as the melodrama, you are kind of right there, because I am inspired by manga kind of, an anime kind of writing, which has a lot of melodrama in it. So that inspiration is there for it, but I don't want this to, I'm not looking at this to be 20, 30, 40 issues, you know, of a story. I'd like to get it wrapped up in 10.
That's how I'd have to wonder about that. Like, how would this be done otherwise? Because if you do it piecemeal, then you're just completely wrecking the pacing of these revelations. So, I mean, how do you do it unless you make sure that it's in a significant enough block, so you know, here's what happened, here's how his wife died, here's what he's doing to the ship. You kind of reveal several things right there, is like how this mysterious force is functioning, and the tragedy, you know, what he did to his wife, how it relates to the ship, you know, this power he has from the ship. It's you know, it's a lot of information. It's a good amount of information. I honestly, I don't think I can think of any flaws or issues.
To me,
any problems I would have.
Well, the question you have to ask yourself as a writer, and, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe you've got so much stuff, so much story you want to tell. You're just like, look, let's get it done. But, you know, if your ideas on issue 2 or 3 are dragging a bit, you know, you got to ask yourself, what's the better emotional payoff of, he just tells you, and then I killed my wife and her soul entered the ship, or is it better to build it up as a mystery? Like, the ship is acting as the ship shouldn't act, but Archer seems
there is more of a mystery. Numenon is the MacGuffin, and there's more to it. Okay, which is going to be revealed later.
But I'm saying, like, the fact that her soul is in the ship. You know, I watched that sci-fi show, which is interesting, very atmospheric, but not entirely, like Night Runners or Nights, which was kind of an attempt to do a serial horror, and it was by the guy who did Boobs and Dragons.
J.R.R. Tolkien. Not Tolkien. Not
Tolkien. Tolkien didn't do Boobs and Dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons, this little book called Lord of the Rings.
Dragons, books. Boobs, no.
Yeah. You know, the HBO show, Boobs and Dragons. This is everybody's favorite. But, you know, like, they finally reveal, like, at the end of the season, that really, like, the AI, which had always been kind of mysterious and strange, actually had the engrams of, like, one of the dead crew members in it or something. So, you know, that was like a big reveal. So you could do that, you know, over the story.
You could hold off on that reveal for a really long time.
That reveal is going to be way down the line, and I don't want to spoil it.
But it's right here in issue 1 that
this reveal. This is not the big reveal, but this reveal could also be held back for later, another issue, maybe a couple of issues even.
Yeah, this reveal is the foreshadowing for the main conflict of the whole.
Right.
I mean, it's your story. I was just making a suggestion.
Yeah. So. No. I appreciate it. I do need it. It's just like, I if I give you like the whole synopsis, but I don't want to spoil the whole thing. So that's why it's like it's one of those things where I gotta say, what you're saying is right, but trust me. that's the point I'm getting at. So it's like, there's,
because I'm trying to think, if I was writing this, you have very little swashbuckling in this, you know, the first part. I mean, it's just it's like the 11-page mark, 12. You got the swashbuckling, that's great, and then it's immediately over, and then it's supplanted by character stuff, which is, again, that's also great, but it's none of the character stuff with this new character who's just joined the crew. He just gets kind of, he has a drink, and it's now, okay, let me tell you what happened to my wife. I mean, that's, you know, that is a choice that you got, and I definitely appreciate finding out about, like, the mysterious heart of this ship. Trying to hold off the mystery on that for too long, and it's like, I might just forget. It's like, Oh, that's right. There's a woman in the ship.
Yeah,
She's living in the
yeah.
ship. I might have
And it's
forgotten.
like he's getting shocked every time he touches it. And the crew's going to be built pretty quickly. Like there's 4 more pages on this one because it's a 24 page issue.
Mhm.
And it stops with them going to go somewhere because they got to build a crew basically. And issue 2 is going to be about the third member of the crew, and pretty much 2/3 of that book is all about her, and then it ends with them meeting at the end. So
Okay.
there's gonna, and then the third book there's gonna be another member of the crew, and it's gonna be mostly about them. So there's these first like 4 or 5 issues is gonna be them going around assembling this crew and some other little reveals and more of the bad guys, because Dumont right now is one of the main antagonists, but there's obviously another actual main antagonist behind him. That's the
The Scorpius.
architect. Yes.
The Scorpius. Is Dumont the Scorpius, or is he the Crace?
Dumont is that guy who's just acting on honor because Emery was his friend. The captain had died in the Nerda. So he's just going on honor and oath,
Crace.
pure military stuff. Whereas the actual antagonist, there's some devious and evil stuff going on.
Scorpius.
Right.
But yeah, the thing is, though, we get very little about this the second character. What is his name?
Kali.
Kali. Yeah, we get very little. Just that he's persecuted for being gay, and that he's a good commanding officer.
Yeah.
We know nothing else about him yet, so I'm hoping there's at least going to be more of him. It's not just going to drop him.
Yeah, there is. It's like for me in the first issue, it was a struggle do I go more into his backstory or the looming question of I just saw you getting shocked by your ship. I need to know what the hell happened here.
Your ship is magic.
Yeah,
it's a magic ship. Yeah,
right. So I needed that, and then I think in either the next issue or third issue there'll be more exposition about him as well.
Because packing in all that stuff in the first. That's the thing. The first issue, it's got to be the ultimate grab them by the collar and yank them in as hard as possible. How do you do that? You gotta introduce as much as you can, and I think this story really does that. So I definitely would want to know what happens next. So I'm on board, but at the same time, it's the character of Kali is just a little thin compared to the captain and his ship.
Right. And that is something I do got to be careful with. I don't want him just to be a plot device or just
or vanish into the background.
There's only 5 people in this crew, so I want to make sure all of them, they're not just supporting cast for Archer. I think I got to flesh them out and make sure that they're
It's a good number for a strong ensemble. 5 people, you can flesh out all of them and still have mystery to build up later.
Right.
Find out which one of them is actually a plant. I mean, they're actually made of a plant.
Made of a plant.
They're made of plant matter.
A little poison ivy going on or something? Or?
Yeah. Well, who was it? The blue chick, the blue ash bitch.
Her. Yeah, I loved her in Farscape.
Yeah,
I loved her. I loved her character. I forgot her name, but I loved her character.
Yeah, I forgot. I forgot her name.
She had when she talked. She played those out perfectly.
Yes. And she ends up basically being brainwashed by sunlight. She's exposed to sunlight, and then she's like on a drug trip. It's great. It's great. Yeah. It's wonderful. Yeah.
I do got to be careful with this though, because I can be honest with you, the story could be a novel, and it could be a very long series. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to weigh, as far as this being my first foray into comic books, to not make it that long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or at least have it come out, and then if there's more to the story, make more volumes later. You know what I mean?
I think that's one of the powers of comics is you could make it as long as you want. Of course, you don't want to be like Berserk. Well, I love Berserk, but it's going on. He started writing in 1988 or something, and he's still writing it. He has to take vacations from the story because it's going on for so long.
Yeah.
And now people are kind of wanting an ending. I think even he wants an ending. Was it Murata? I forgot the guy's name who makes Berserk. But yeah, it's been going since 88. So you don't want to write that long.
No. I'm hoping I can get it wrapped up in 10 to 12 issues. That's what my goal is. 6 seems a little too short for the story. It's a little too big for 6. So I'm thinking 10 to 12.
Also, at the same time, for the inspiration you took, You took inspiration from two great works that never had any endings.
Yeah.
So Firefly gets a movie that I like the movie. I like Serenity,
Yeah.
but it could have kept going forever as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, Farscape. I don't know if you ever saw the ending, the final episode of Farscape, but it's very sudden. They just vaporize the two main characters.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the end. It's almost like a middle finger. It's a middle finger in the face of everyone in the audience and stuff. It's like,
I think what they were trying to evoke with that is this story was never meant to have a happy ending. I think that's what the feeling they were trying to get from it.
Well, also at the same time, I think it was the show got canceled, and it's like,
well, that too, yeah.
Because they introduced time travel, and so it's like, we do have a solution, but how are we gonna? Everything is that's one of the things I love about Farscape is everything's earned. You don't have quick solutions, and then you've added wormholes and time travel, but every single one of those elements in the story are very earned. They're difficult to come by.
Yeah,
and that's great writing. That's the power of great writing. So that story could have gone on longer, of course. It was 4 seasons?
Yeah.
Farscape.
Yeah, I think it was 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, but it could have kept going. It was a big story. And it had a lot of, political elements to it and power struggles and stuff too. So
it could have continued in comic. In fact, I know I'm pretty sure it was Joss Whedon actually did a comic book of Firefly after he finished Serenity. It's like, yeah, that story could have kept going. It could have went on in
the comic shop. Yeah, I saw that at the comic shop when I was there for my book release. I saw the Firefly comics there.
Like, I remember reading. It was just one issue that I read, but I read it and it's like, well, this is kind of comfortable, getting back with these characters, and it's all of them. It's before the events of Serenity, so it's all the characters. You still have Shepherd Book, and you have Wash. And it's like, oh, this is great. They could have done that. And that's the thing, though, is people look down on comics. It's a little sad, partially because most of the entire universe of comic book making is superheroes. People only see it as this one thing. And so nobody makes any really unique story. I look at White Lily. Some people have criticized White Lily just because it's about lesbians. And it's like, wait, I thought you were supposed to be pro-LGBT.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it.
And the thing about that is... It reminds me of a joke. There's like a gay joke that they tell about like you go and you lay carpet or something, and then you can go do some other job. You're not defined by that one thing, but damn it, you perform fellatio one time and you're a cocksucker for the rest of your life. I mean, in the story, I mean, like, Lilia is engaged to this man. She has a relationship with him for 3 issues, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And and in issue 4, after his tragic death, she spends one night with Katya, and the whole story it's about 2 lesbians.
About 2 lesbians.
The whole comic. That's actually kind of how the comic was even sold to me. It's about lesbian fighter pilots during World War II, and it's based on a real story. And I read the first 4 issues, and it's like, where's the lesbian?
There's the lesbians I was promised. I'm like, I mean, really, I think that's not a bad pitch, so I don't really bother to correct it when people are running with it. I'm like,
there's one lesbian. There's one lesbian. You can't have sex with your one lesbian. You can't have lesbian sex.
Yeah, it's similar with like what I set up here. Okay, Kali's gay, and him and Archer's bi. Obviously, they had a thing in their youth when they were in the academy and stuff like that. But that's not like the center of the story. That's more or less for me to set up the kinship that these 2 men have. You know what I mean? It's that they're that close, but it's not like there's more to the story than that. That's not the issue of the story.
It's not gay romance. That's the thing.
Right. Exactly.
He was married to a woman, so I mean, and that's a huge story element too. You have to factor it. You can't just say it's about gay guys. It's like kind of like, I remember being told, oh, you should go watch what was it? Dustin Hoffman and in New York City in the 60s.
Midnight Cowboy.
Midnight Cowboy is sold as a yaoi movie to me. It's like, oh, he ends up having sex with a gay guy in the movie. It's totally yaoi, and it's like it's like I'm not going to watch the movie because of that. I'm going to watch the movie because I heard it's a good movie on its own rights. And I watch the movie, and it's like a traumatizing element because he's trying to be a gigolo, and
Yes.
they're all old women. And near the end of the movie, it's like I can't make any money from these old women, but I can make money from this guy who wants to give me a blowjob in a theater. And the
Well,
other
yeah, I mean,
girls in the news group were like, oh, I watched that movie. It wasn't hot at all. And it's like, yeah, Americans aren't going to make your yaoi girl porn, guy on guy girl porn with bishies. There's no
I,
bishies in this movie.
Yeah.
It's strange that that their main criticism of Midnight Cowboy was the scene where he's really selling out. Could be way hotter.
Yes. I mean,
yeah, people are
you
gonna
know,
find if they, I mean, if they want to outrage about something, they'll find something to outrage about. You know,
Yeah.
that's just how it is. It's like boiling the original Star Wars trilogy down to, oh, it's just about this girl wanting to fall in love with a bad boy.
Right.
You know, it's like that's all you got out of the movies.
Right.
You know, there's like,
even if you just boil it down to hero's journey. But I think that's actually a disservice. It's a disservice to White Lily to just boil it down to gay World War II girl
Yeah.
fighter pilots. It's about more than that. It's
It
about,
is.
the war is a bigger element.
Oh
And
yeah.
the characters and the setting, the fact that it's they're Russian fighter pilots, that's a really new, that's untapped, unexplored storytelling elements.
yeah.
You
But they don't get that while stories, plot driven stories are important, the plot is obviously important. That's what, that as a writer, that's what we're
Mm.
revolving ourselves around. But there is this little thing called character development. And all these little things add to the character's development. It gives you an idea other than it just being this shell of a human. You know what I mean? It's just character development. It's integral for someone to, associate or understand the characters that they're reading, other than saying, oh, the plot is all I want to care about. Just plug and place whoever's in there and it's still the plot. That's all I care about. Well, you got to develop these characters. You can't just
Especially
plug
in
them
this,
in
I
there.
mean, the title of the story is even White Lily. It's about this fighter pilot.
Yeah, right.
You got to have all the elements of her character there.
And I thought about that scene, the night she spends with Katya, quite a bit. Like, I've been
Oh,
kicking this story around for years,
well,
and I ultimately decided, one, all right, so there's the pragmatic reason of, hey, big guys like lesbians and comics, you'll bitch about it. But
yeah.
there's like the other thing, which is, like she is kind of pragmatic. If you've read issue 4, then you know that she has kind of come to terms and accepted that death is what she is there for, and that she is now going to the Battle of Kursk in search of it, but that Katya, essentially is kind of is trying to pull her back from that. And when I was writing it, I'm like, like Lilia's motivation could be, and I don't, she never gives her motivation. I think it's better for us as the audience to sit and speculate about it. But there's certainly a pragmatic reason of Lilia being like, Katya's a good fighter pilot. She's been with me the whole time. She's in love with me. If I spend the night with her and then I'm going off to battle, she'll come with me, and I want
Mhm.
that. So there is kind of that pragmatic element of
Yeah.
bringing someone along with you.
I haven't
war.
read the end of the story. I don't know how this story ends, and I've never heard this
Right.
story before either.
We'll
It's
find out in issue 5. So.
it's based on true life.
It is based on real women, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Nobody ever told me about the story. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen. Is she going to die because she?
Hello.
Yeah, we lost him.
Yeah, I lost some of that. Well, it's
As a
good.
pilot.
I appreciate you asking. There is a link down in the description for the sign-up page for White Lily issue 5. That's coming in about 30 days. So
Hey,
I'm pretty excited.
we should check that out.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like I'm very passionate and invested in this story, and I think writers, I think you have to be. Unless you're at like the top of your game, if like Stephen King is, hanging out and he's like, I don't know, maybe I want to do a book about a bug. People are like, yes, do it. Like whatever he does is great, right? But when you're at our level, you know, and that's where again I was telling you, patriarchal Abe, like you have to be certain in your thing
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
you know you have to sell people on this idea that is just so big and just so huge that you know it's like the passion you have for it has escaped you and now it's into them kind of
Yeah.
thing, you know, and if you're not there, um, well then the odds that you're gonna be able to really sell people on it go down. So you know that's the writing and the
Yeah.
stuff. It has to be like this wonderful idea that you present to the world.
Right.
So,
Think
Did
of
you
it
ever see?
at the bar where you got the guy, you got like, one guy telling a story where he just gives you the facts and you're like bored. Then you got the guy who's a real expressive storyteller and makes it interesting. And the story itself might not even be that great, but just the way he's presenting it makes it an intriguing story.
Hmm.
That's how you got to kind of look at it too.
Speaking of Stephen King, did you ever see Dreamcatcher?
I
I
did
mean,
not.
I certainly didn't watch, or I didn't read the book, but I did watch the movie. That movie is fucking weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm wondering, is that Stephen King when he's really invested, or is that him sleepwalking through his career and it somehow got turned into a movie anyway?
Now I think Stephen King is just weird. That's just it. He's like, he has all these weird ideas. He's like, I'm just going to throw this shit out there, see what sticks.
That
And
one seems to be the biggest amalgam of his weirdest ideas because it's I don't know if you've ever seen any of that. It's was it monsters that form from people's asses. So there's a lot of shit humor, and then there's a guy who's special needs. We'll call him retarded,
Yeah.
who turns out to be an alien, and then there's an alien invasion, and then fucking what was it? Morgan Freeman is the general in charge of the military. He's very out of character for Morgan Freeman, and I forgot how the rest of the movie goes. There's also psychics. Oh yeah, the main characters are all psychics too. Did I mention that part? It's fucking nuts. I don't even like the movie that much, but you kind of have to appreciate he's
Well,
willing to throw that much against the wall.
I mean, Stephen King's funny because there's some of his early works. I forgot which one. There was a quote or something he talked about. There's some of his early works where he felt they were complete trash, and he's like, people just loved it. I don't know why they love it, but hey, I guess so. You know what I mean?
How early are we talking about? Because I mean, The Shining was early '80s.
I mean, Shining is good. Carrie's good. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Carrie, Christine.
I'm just talking about him from his
Christine,
perspective. He was like,
yeah.
I didn't feel I did really good with those when I wrote them. You know what I mean?
Well,
I forgot
when I
which
was
one he was
listening
talking about.
to his book on writing, which I recommend, by the way, it's good.
Mhm.
You know, he said he knew that. Well, all right, he wrote Carrie, and then he threw it away, and then his wife found it in the trash, and was like, "This is a good story. You should run with it." So I guess there's that element, but you know, he
Maybe
had
that's what
some
I was thinking
ideas.
about.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
So
There's also the element of it being adapted to a movie. Supposedly, he doesn't like the Kubrick version of The Shining or something like that, and it's like, why not?
yeah, it's
And
good.
I don't know
Well,
why he
I
doesn't.
get it. As a writer, I mean, directors obviously take when we talk about adaptation to movies. While the central core idea of the book is there, the directors do add their vision to it, and sometimes the writer is like, "Yeah, that's not really what I saw when I wrote it." You know what I mean? So
Actually, yeah.
I get it. I get it.
actually
I mean,
watched
I don't think
the,
he meant. I don't think he meant it was a bad movie. I think he just meant not really what I
yeah,
was looking at when I
it
wrote it.
wasn't what he had in mind, I guess, because I
Right.
did actually watch the miniseries too. I remember that. It's a very different. It's basically about alcoholism. The movie is almost not an element of the movie. He gets
Right.
drunk at the bar, and now he is the monster. He is the demon. And but the movie, of course, the Kubrick movie is a lot more effective at the horror elements and the mystery.
Yeah. Well, that's what the movies do. They want to kick you with the horror elements. You know what I mean? Whereas Stephen King, the horror elements are there, but there's a lot of character development that the movies don't necessarily do.
Because a lot more has to be written, of course, in the book form.
Right.
So you can't just have the elevator opened and a bunch of blood came out, and it's like, I don't care. How do
Yeah.
you write
Like
that?
like the stuff that does a lot of character developments are really long things, like stuff like The Stand, when they did adaptation of that, and It, which was, there was a lot of character development and those kind of things because they were theatrically longer and
Yeah.
had more room for it.
It was a mini series, and then we got a 2-part movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, but that one there was more time to delve into the character development. Whereas, when you do short little things like, Needful. I love Needful Things. I think
Yeah,
that's one that doesn't get enough attention out of all of his stuff. I really like Needful Things.
yeah. And then of course there's Pet Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
He made just a shitload of stories that got turned into movies. Really great movies.
Langoliers. That was surprised me that they made that into a movie. But yeah, Langoliers is a movie too.
Yeah, I remember actually watching that. I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13. This TV movie
Yeah,
miniseries or something. I remember being entertained by it, but I was also a kid, so I can't really tell you if Langoliers is good or not. I watched the Nostalgia Critic review of it, and he made fun of it a lot.
yeah.
But Nostalgia Critic reviewed a whole bunch of Stephen King stories, but he never did Needful Things. And it's like, I love Needful Things. It's kind of Twilight Zone ish. It's great.
Max von Sydow was awesome in that.
Oh yeah,
He was just spectacular in that movie.
it's been a while since I've seen it, but I
Yeah,
remember it was like, oh man, this is really just the characters of the townsfolk all getting twisted up by the devil's plans.
yeah.
It's the devil spoiler. It is the devil.
The
But yeah,
devil.
that's also an interesting way to put it. Is the devil is just essentially a trickster who's going to allow these people to rip each other to pieces.
Yeah, and doing it by giving them what they want.
Yes, yes, it's the worst thing. It's everything they ever asked for.
Hmm.
All right. Next week I will be presenting Guinevere and the Divinity Factory issue 4. So
Nice.
All right.
that'll be cool.
Definitely wanna read that. I only read
Okay.
the first issue, so I definitely want to read more of that.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, I can send you a PDF for issue 2.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah, do
All right.
that.
Cool.
Yeah,
I
and if
will.
anyone's interested too, tomorrow on my channel, tomorrow evening at 7, I'm having my friend Carmelo Chimera. He's a local comic shop owner and small publisher. He's going to be on talking about how this whole COVID thing is dealing with comic shops and
Mm.
the whole diamond issue, and so we're going to talk about that too. And me and him might end up collabing and finding people to crowdfund this book that I'm writing right now. So
Cool.
Yeah, finding out about Diamond. That is the thing. Is like Diamond's collapsing. They have a monopoly on comic book distribution, and now it looks like they might be going away. And it's like, oh man, what's going to happen? What is going to happen to comic book publishing if Diamond just goes out of business?
I, look, I think it's good for us.
yeah, I don't think it kills anything. It's just
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
time to
Yeah.
evolve.
all right.
It'll be a replacement. They'll get replaced. That's the
Yeah.
thing, and it might be really good for people.
And
Well,
just like how other things get replaced, like when they broke up Ma Bell or other things, you break up this huge thing, and then you suddenly get competition, and you get a lot of
Yes,
smaller things that take its place, which I think is
sure.
better.
the free
I
market at work.
Yeah, the most economically efficient distribution method using modern tools and services would be if DC and Marvel opened an Amazon store and they
Yeah,
post their books there, and whoever wants them can come buy them. Right? Amazon's going to take care of the distribution and all the customer service stuff, and there it is. But of course, that would cut out the local comic book store and kind of
yeah,
how the whole thing has evolved. So there's the economically efficient model, and then there's the model we're kind of working with. So
And nobody wants to be like, oh, your story is out. Your store doesn't exist in the modern world anymore. You have to go. I mean,
yeah,
the store I live closest to already sells drones, Funko Pops,
yeah,
collectible coins, manga, and
yeah,
Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments and Pokemon tournaments. They do
yeah,
everything else, but they also have American comics. I'm
yeah.
wondering,
yeah.
is your friend who owns a comic shop and does minimal publishing or something, does he publish digitally or does he print?
Print, print.
Uh, okay.
Mhm.
How does he? Well, I guess this is a question for when he's on the show with you, because I'd be wondering how exactly he manages his print run. How much that costs him. Is it cost effective?
Yeah,
That's
I mean, we
always my
talked about
question.
this when we did my book. Come on and ask when you're there. Ask in the chat. I mean, we'll pull up the questions. I'll ask them whatever you guys want me to ask.
All right.
Because he did do it. And he had I believe because he did it his book he did it as a crowdsource as well, a Kickstarter. The last one he put out, two of them actually did. Cellar Door, which was an anthology, and then he had his own book, Magnificent, which is like a superhero comic, a hardcover. And with that, he ran the crowdfund source, and then he had enough to do instead of doing like Ingram Sparks or something like that, he found a printer. He was able to do onboard printing or whatever it's called. I forgot the name of it. But he found a printer overseas to print it for him for a good price, and that's how he managed it all, and then fulfilled it on his own.
All right,
Cool.
yeah. And there's
So
some
that's going to be tomorrow on your channel?
Tomorrow, yeah, at 7 o'clock on the Grey Council.
I'm not. I don't think I'm subscribed. So if you could like post a link to that in the
Yeah.
writers' room general or something like
Yeah.
that, I'll be
I'll
able
do
to
that.
find it from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, I'll see everybody next week.
All right,
right.
cool, guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Take care.